14.
14. Good job. And he had a nickname, Louis XIV. He was named the Sun King. Okay? He thought he was the center of the universe. Everything was turning around him. So Louis XIV, he used to live over there, but then also his successor, Louis XV, used to live there, and Louis XVI. Okay? We are going to mostly talk about those three kings. This room, it is not the style of the Sun King, it is the style of his successor, Louis XV. When you look at this room, this is a neo-classical style. It is a style that is inspired by Greek architecture or Roman architecture. And you can look at this big chandelier hanging from the ceiling. This huge chandelier, it is made of Swarovski crystals. Okay. You know the jewelry brand, Versaille? This is the material. It is supposed to represent the link between the past and the present. Because at the time of the kings and queens, there were chandeliers everywhere in the palace. And you see, at the top of the stairs, this is Louis XV. Okay. So, I have a question for you with this statue. When you look the outfit of Louis XV, can you tell me from which civilization this outfit come from?
Roman.
Exactly. You have recognized that because of the sandals,
Yes.
the skirt, the sword maybe, the toga, the toge. So yeah, you will see that in this palace, the kings of France, they love to compare themselves to Roman emperor, sometimes to Roman generals, but sometimes even they compare themselves to heroes of the mythology or to gods of the Roman mythology. Okay? Here you have Louis XV, and he was married to a woman from Poland, Maria Leszczyńska from Poland, that you can see on the other side of the room. Okay? So, I told you that the king, they love to compare themselves to heroes of the mythology. The next room that we are going to see is named the Room of Hercules. You guys know Hercules? Yeah? How do you say it? Hercules? Hercules. Yeah. So here we are entering into the Room of Hercules. The one that... No, this is another one. You are thinking about Atlas, I think. The one that used to hold Earth. Right? No, I'm talking about the one he had to make the 12 labors. You know, the first one was to kill a lion. He has to fight against the Hydra. He has 12 labors. You have seen Marius? She's from Poland. Maria Leszczyńska from Poland. So now you can see the style of the Sun King, Louis XIV. You see, it is totally different. This is the Hercules room. So here in this room, you have references to the 12 labors of Hercules everywhere. For example, if you look at the top of the chimney, this is the face of Hercules with the lion fur. Remember, the first labor of Hercules was to kill a dangerous and big lion. Now, if you look on the ceiling, can you see at the bottom, once again you have the lion fur, yes? And just at the left of that you have a monster that has 3 legs. You see the sort of dog? This is Cerberus. Cerberus, you know, is the guardian of hell. It's a monster that keeps the entrance of hell. So, it is references to the 12 labors of Hercules. This is a famous story. But when he finished everything, Hercules, after that he retired, and after that he's going to be killed. Hercules is going to be killed by a poisoned arrow. When he died, he's invited by all the Roman gods to join them in the Olympia, that is the land of the gods. That is what is happening on the ceiling. Hercules, he just died. You can find him, by the way, on the ceiling. He's standing on the chariot, and he has a sort of beige hat. Can you find Hercules?
Yeah.
Right here, exactly. He just died, and he's joining all the Roman gods in the Olympia. Okay? This painting is really a masterpiece. It was made only by one French painter named François Lemoine. François Lemoine, the painter, it took him 2 years to paint all of it. And after that, he offered it to the King of France. The King of France, he was really impressed, so he decided to name him official painter of the crown. It was a huge honor, but also a lot of work. So months after months, working for the King of France, the painter, he became crazy. At one point, he made a burnout and he stabbed himself in the heart because it was too much pressure working for the king. And he died like that. But he left us this masterpiece.
Divide the hand of God.
Here, you have seen this building from the outside. This building, this is the royal chapel. Okay, this is the chapel linked directly to the palace. Maybe you have noticed, but outside, this is the highest point in the whole palace to show that there is God, and then you have the king. Then you will see that the palace is the tallest building in the whole city of Versailles to show that the king is above the rest of the world. And now we are going to take a look at the inside of the royal chapel. So, you know this palace, it was built from 1662 to 1712. And weirdly, this chapel is the last building that was built in the whole palace. It was built 3 years before the death of Louis XIV. Maybe you know, Louis XIV knew that he was going to die, and to build this chapel, it was a way for him to go to heaven. Because the problem with Louis XIV, he made many sins in his life, many wars, he had many mistakes. So he was not able to go to heaven. Take a good look inside.
මේක කැමරාවට මෙහෙම පොඩියට මෙවුනට මේක හරිය ලොකුයි චැපල් එක.
And in front of us, we have his son Jesus in the third circle that is joining him when he dies. Okay? And the king, during the religious ceremonies, he used to stand on the balcony that is in front of us. And the rest of the people, they were downstairs. Once again, to show that there is God, the king, and the rest of the world. So, I told you that Louis XIV is a special king because he decided not to live in Paris. He decided to move in Versailles because, remember, I told you, he became a king at the age of 4. And when he became a king, his power, it was highly contested by the rich families of France, by the nobility of France. So during all his childhood, Louis XIV, he had to escape from one palace to another. He settled over there, but he didn't settle here only by himself. He brought also all the nobility of France with him in Versailles. This palace, at the time, it could house 4,000 persons, and the rest of the people living here, they were living in here. Behind those doors, it used to be the apartments of the nobility. It meant that before visiting the apartments of the king, they had to go through the Hercules room. Hercules, in your opinion, is a symbol of what? Exactly, strength, power. In fact, everything in this palace, it's made to show the values of the king, to legitimate the power of the king at first, but also to intimidate the nobility, and also to impress the visitors. Everything.
මොකක් කර ඇති ප්ලෑන් එකක් නේ.
In this room, the time of Louis XIV was supposed to be a ball room. people used to dance where we are. Also, the king really liked to organize huge parties in Versailles. It was a way for him to entertain the nobility, so they wouldn't think about revolting against the king. Here, this is a painting that is representing a scene from the Bible. It's an episode from the Bible named The Washing of the Feet. Okay, now we are going really to enter into the great apartments of Louis XIV. From now, each room shows you one value of the king. For example, this room, it is named the Abundance Room, okay? The room of plenty. Okay, let's stay a little bit here, letting the rest of the groups abundance. What does this show? This room is supposed to show that under the reign of Louis XIV, the kingdom is rich. Of course, the king was rich, the nobility was rich, but most of the people in France, they were starving. Try to stay with me so we can let some room for the other guys. Okay, here, if you look, you are going to see paintings. Those paintings, they show the heirs of Louis XIV. For example, his son. His son is going to be father of a king and son of a king also because he's the son of Louis XIV. He's going to be the father of the king of Spain, right there. Then you have another grandson that won't be king of France. In fact, the future successor of the same king is going to be his great-grandson, Louis XV, that you can see right here. I'm going to explain later why it's only his great-grandson that became his successor.
Anyway, I know St. Petersburg Palace එකට මාර. St. Petersburg Palace එක මේකත් වඩා ලස්සනයි.
Normally, if you have been in Roma, you might know some of the Roman gods. Okay? Here we are in the room of Venus. Venus is the goddess of what?
Goddess of beauty.
Beauty, right? She's also the goddess of love and the goddess of fertility. Remember, I told you that each room is made to show one value of the king. In your opinion, why fertility is important for the royalty?
Continuing their
Exactly.
dynasty.
To have successors, exactly. And love, we can say that it is kind of important because at the time, one way to create alliances, can you guess what was the way to create alliances between kingdoms? Marriages. Okay? Yeah. For example, you have to understand that Louis XIV, he was married to his first cousin that was from Spain. The problem is, at the time, you had only 4 or 5 families that used to control the different kingdoms. Okay? And there was not enough mix, so there was some incest. Okay? Anyway, Louis XIV, in this room, he wanted to show that his wedding with his first cousin, Maria Theresa from Spain, he can compare it to the greatest wedding in the history of the world. For example, when you look at this square painting, this is the wedding of Alexander the Great. Louis XIV was a huge fan of Alexander the Great, and by the way, he even named Instagram after him Louis the Great. Okay? Here, behind me, we can see once again Louis XIV. Here he is trying to represent himself once again as a Roman general, but also as a hero of the mythology. Because look, he has his hand on the helmet that look like the lion fur, and maybe you can recognize the face on the shield. It's the face that belonged to a monster in the Roman mythology.
Yeah.
Can you guess which monster it is?
It's from
Look the hair. Look the hair of the monster.
under the sea.
Yes, snake. So this is the one that look at you and you turn into stone. This is Medusa.
Yes, Medusa.
So he's comparing himself to two heroes of the mythology, Hercules and Percy, the ones that killed Medusa. Okay, let's continue.
Outside.
Here we are restoring one room. During the night of parties, this room it used to be the billiard room. Okay? And here we are arriving into the room. You guys keep going forward, please. Okay, so this is the room of Mars. Okay, Mars in the Roman mythology is the god of war. So this room it shows you that the king is good at strategy, is good to keep his kingdom safe, but also to conquer more territory. Okay, maybe let's move on the side to let some room for the other room. Here, in this room, once again you are going to see a representation of Alexander the Great, at the left. At the center, you have Louis XIV, he's on the horse, but there is one problem with this painting. The king is taller than the horse. Normally, nobody is supposed to be taller than the horse. Okay? So there is a problem. Okay? So from the beginning of the tour, you can notice that the Sun King, Louis XIV, he wanted to give a strong image of himself. But it was not a realistic image, it was propaganda. One of the reasons Louis XIV he didn't live in Paris, it was because Paris was really dirty, one of the dirtiest capital in the world in his century. Okay? So he had many diseases during his life, but it was a good idea to move in Versailles because he lived until 76 with XIV. It was extremely cold back then. But during his life, he had many diseases, Louis XIV. For example, he had the typhus, and the typhus made him lose all of his hair. This is why he started to wear wigs, Louis XIV. And the nobility around him, they wanted to please him, so they also started to wear wigs, and little by little it became a fashion style all over Europe. Okay? He is the reason why everybody in Europe used to wear a wig. But one of the most famous diseases of the king is, of course, the last one. The problem with Louis XIV, he liked too much eating sweet things. And because of that, he had diabetes. And his diabetes, when he's 76, it turned into gangrene. His feet and then his legs are starting to rot little by little. So he died in a lot of pain, okay? But he died extremely old, as I told you. It meant that he lived so old that he overlived his son and his grandsons. This is why his future successor is only his great-grandson, Louis XV, that you can see once again here. Louis XV is here, and once again you are going to see his wife, Maria Leczinska of Poland, on the other side. Okay, and now guys, we are going to see the room where Louis XIV. We are going to see the fake bedroom of the king. You heard it well, I insist, this is the fake bedroom. You see those great apartments, the king he didn't really used to live in there. Those apartments, they were only meant to show off to the visitors, to show the values of the king.
Is Marie Antoinette also lived here?
Marie Antoinette, she used to live there. Yeah. She is. sorry, I'm really hot. So, the next one that you are going to see is the fifth bedroom of the king. It is named the Mercury room. The Mercury that you are going to see on the central side. Here is the representative of the sciences and the arts. Mercury that you are going to see on the central ceiling. Here it shows the education movement.
බෙඩ් එක 14 වෙනි ලොවි රජතුමාගේ ඇඳ මේක ෆේක් එකක් ඇත්ත එක නෙවෙයි බට් මේ විදිහම තමයි යාගේ කාමරේ තිබිලා තියෙන එක බලන්න දෙන්නේ සාමාන්‍ය මිනිස්සුන්ට ඒක සංරක්ෂණය කරලා.
So, remember I told you that it is not a real bedroom. It means that if you take a good look, you are going to see secret doors that lead to the real apartments of the king. Can you find the secret doors?
Behind that picture?
No, you will see those. You can see the secret doors, but you need to take a good look. Good job. Exactly on the right corner. Okay. These secret doors, it leads to the real apartments of the king.
Secret door.
Also, if you look on the ceiling, you are going to see a pharaoh over there, like the Egypt kings, right? Why did he represent that? Because Louis XIV, he wanted to compare the construction of Versailles with the construction of the pyramid. Okay? You see, he really want to enter into the history of the world. Here, if you look on the ceiling, you are going to see a leopard. Can you see here? The leopard, it is a reference to the construction of a zoo in the gardens of Versailles. Louis XIV, he decided to build a zoo in the gardens of Versailles to entertain the nobility once again. Now, we are going to enter into one of the most important rooms into the great apartments. It is the most important room at the time of the king because it used to be the throne room.
What? Mana room? Throne room? Throne. Ah, throne.
And this room, it is named the room of Apollo. Apollo, in the Roman mythology, he is the sun god. So this is the most important room for the sun king. Okay?
Fireplace.
Okay. At the left, on the left wall, you can see Louis XVI, the last king of France before the French Revolution. He was the husband of Marie Antoinette. Okay? And here on this side, you are going to see the most famous painting of Louis XIV. On this painting, the king is 62 years old. Okay, the face is realistic, but they have taken the leg of a young dancer of ballet to put it on the painting, to make him look more stable, stronger, basically. Also, yeah, he didn't add any hair, so this is a huge wig. It used to be the throne room, so there was a throne at the center of the room, but it was removed by the king. He melted it. It used to be a 2-meter silver throne. He melted it to fund, to make money for one of his work. Okay, let's get some air and some light. Famous room in the whole palace of Versailles. It's named the Hall of Mirrors. This room is extremely important. It's extremely important for the French history. It was the room where we used to celebrate the great events. For example, one part of the wedding of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, it was celebrated here. But more recently, maybe you have heard about the Treaty of Versailles, yeah, the one that was signed after the First World War. It was signed in this room. Recently, the new King of England was invited by the President in this room. They made a huge feast. They invited the Rolling Stones, you know, the music band, many famous people to celebrate.
Water fountains.
And here, the French gardens. So, you can see the gardens of Versailles that are French gardens. What does it mean? It is a style where the nature is really controlled. Okay? In the French gardens that you can see through the windows, everything is about symmetry, everything is about control of the nature. By controlling the nature like that, the king wanted to show that you can even bend the nature of the nature. Bonjour monsieur, j'ai trouvé ça qui était par terre. C'est pas que vous avez demandé, c'était le bon, mais c'est quoi vous? C'est pas vous? D'accord. Non, mais parce que je ne croyais pas en fait c'était un groupe parce que c'est déjà demandé, c'est derrière nous avec le truc de bordel. Oui, d'accord, c'est déjà. Okay. All the paintings that you can see on the ceiling, they represent a political success of the king. Okay? This wall, it shows that the 21st years of the reign of King XIII, every political decision was a success. But you know what was the most expensive thing to build in this room? It was the mirrors. Okay? Because at the time we only knew to make some mirrors in the state city of Venice. Okay? They had the monopoly. So Louis XIV, he asked to the Venetian to send some craftsmen to teach us how to do. Okay, they teach us, but some people in Venice, they weren't happy because they used to have the monopoly. So they sent some spies to kill the but they couldn't do it. In France, we succeed to make bigger mirrors, but also clearer mirrors. Okay? 70% of the mirror nowadays, they are still original. Okay? And as you can see, some are doors and some are only doors. Those doors once again lead to the real apartments of the king. So imagine if you were an ambassador from a really important country, okay, for France of course. So first the ambassador, he had to go through the great apartments. Okay? And then he arrived in this room. Sometimes the king used to put his throne at the end of this room. It means that first you arrive this way, you come that way, you have quarters, so nobles and guards on both sides of the room, and while you are walking, everybody is watching you, but also you are looking at the different success of the king. Here, can you see on the ceiling? Louis XIV is saying that he is a god. He's sitting on the clouds, holding the lightning bolt. So I think you can understand the ego of Louis XIV. Okay, I told you a lot about Louis XIV. He will die in 1715, and at the same moment, this is the end of his reign, of course. So his future successor, his new successor, Louis XV, is his great-grandson, that start to reign in 1715, and that will reign during 60 years. So until 1775. You know, Louis XIV and his reign, after his reign, the kingdom was really in an economic crisis. Also, so this is one of the reasons for the future French Revolution, but also Louis XIV, he was an absolute king. At first, you know, he had the first minister that used to help him to take some decisions, but when this first minister died, he decided not to have more ministers. Okay? There was a parliament at first, before his reign, but he decided to erase all the power of the parliament. So we can say that the reign of Louis XIV is one of the reasons for the future French Revolution. Bon, we talked a lot about Louis XIV, let's talk a little bit about Louis XV that you can see over here. Louis XV, if you ask to most of the French people what he did during his reign, most of the time we cannot really answer, because he was in the shadow of the sun. Okay? In fact, Louis XV, we mostly remember him because of his mistresses. He had the reputation to have many mistresses, and also those mistresses had the reputation to have too much influence on his reign. Okay? Also, Louis XV is not well remembered because he was not really good at war and at economy. So he made France lose a lot of territories and a lot of battles. And a lot of money. Okay? So anyway, now we are going to enter into the great queen's apartment that time. Okay? The first room that we are going to see is the fake bedroom of the queen. Once again. Okay? Now we are going to see a really important room, because the room that we are going to go through, it used to be the room where the queen they used to give birth. In the room that you are going to see, 19 kids that were from the royal family were born. Okay? 3 kings of France were born in the room that you are going to see. And you have to imagine that when a queen was giving birth, she didn't have any intimacy. Okay? She didn't have any intimacy. So, of course, when the queen was giving birth, the queen was in the room, the doctor was in the room, some servants also, but also sometimes there were some courtiers and some ambassadors looking at the queen giving birth.
Mais c'est pas possible.
You can take a look, I cannot stop in this room because it's too crowded. But yeah, this is the room where the queen were giving birth. Once again, to give birth for a queen, it was considered as a ceremony. Yeah, we call it the queen's apartment, but once again, it was not really the place where they were living. The real apartments, they are behind those walls. Here, for example, the next room that we are going to see, it was the equivalent of the throne room for the queen. Here, the queen, she used to receive the lady of the court to answer their requests. The next room that we are going to see, it used to be the dining room. But even the dinner for the king and his family, it was considered as a public ceremony. So the king and his family, they were eating on a long table, and the people, they were staying around looking at them eat. So, I was telling you about Louis XV. Louis XV's territories, because also of his mistresses, he was not really popular. At one point, Louis XV he made so many losses of territories that he had to create alliances with other kingdoms by organizing weddings with his future successors. He's going to marry his future successor the future Louis XVI with one woman from Austria that you might know, Marie Antoinette. Okay? And it was a big deal because Austria, it has been the enemy of France during 3 centuries. So at first the wedding is organized by distance, but then arrived the day of the real wedding. Marie Antoinette, she has to travel to Versailles, right? And when she arrives in Versailles, actually, she's not really well received. Okay? The people, they don't like Austrian back then in Versailles. So the people, the noble of the court, they are going to create rumors on Marie Antoinette. Rumors that maybe she spied for the country she comes from. Rumors that maybe she spent too much money. During this period where people are creating some rumors about Marie Antoinette, Louis XV is going to die because he caught the smallpox. Okay? When he dies, actually, people in Paris, they are almost celebrating his death. So some people, they were celebrating his death. So Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, they became the new king and the new queen of France. And Louis XV, he was also not really good at economy, remember? So when he died, the kingdom is in bankruptcy. From the beginning of the reign of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, it's an economic crisis in France. Okay? So I was telling you about that. Also, the problem is Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, they really had a hard time to conceive babies. They had to wait 7 years after their wedding to conceive their first baby. So, because of that, Louis XVI, he doesn't have a really an image of virility. Because people, they are starting to say he cannot be a real man because he cannot conceive babies. You understand. Marie Antoinette, people, they are still creating some rumors on her, so she is not popular at all in France. So, we arrive at one moment where it becomes critical. From the beginning of the reign of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, because of the kingdom that is in crisis, there are some revolts happening everywhere in France. Here, you see the painting right there? This painting, it was created, it was a demand by Marie Antoinette. She wanted to show herself as a good and simple mother. You have her firstborn at the left, her son at the right, that was supposed to become the next king of France, and a baby girl on her lap. You can see she does not have a lot of jewelry on her. She wants to show that she's a queen that does not spend too much money. She also wants to show that she's a simple mother. Okay? She's a simple woman, like a good Catholic woman. The furniture, sometimes it was restored, sometimes it was stolen, it depends. They tried to replace everything like it was back then. So I was telling you, come with me, try not to block the road. So I was telling you that during the reign of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, the situation in the kingdom was complicated. The economic situation, but also the image of the royal couple was not good at all. So 14 years after the beginning of the reign of Louis XVI and Marie Antoinette, there are some revolt everywhere. We arrive in 1789 in July. In July 1789, the people of France, they were starving. You have to imagine that at the time, one loaf of bread, it could cost you 1 month of salary. The people, they were literally starving in France. So the 14th of July 1789, there are some riots in Paris. When the King of France noticed that, he decided to send some soldiers in Paris to stop the riots. But when the Parisian people, they noticed that, they are afraid. So the morning of the 14th of July 1789, they invade the military hospital of Paris. Here they invade it so they can take the rifles, the cannons and the sword of the French army. They have all of that, but they don't have the powder to shoot with the rifles. So in the afternoon they go to the Bastille. Maybe you have heard this name, Bastille Day. maybe you?
Bastille,
Yeah, Bastille in French. Okay? It used to be a fortress, but also like a political jail. Okay? The king, he just had to write one letter to send you to the Bastille. Okay? So it was a symbol of the king home. They invade the Bastille, they cut the head of the director of the jail, they put it on the pike, and they walk in the street of Paris saying, "Long live the revolution, long live the revolution." This is the first step of the violent French Revolution. But after that, during 2 months, almost nothing happens. So people are still starving, for example, in Paris, and a large group of women, they are going to organize, they are going to walk from Paris to Versailles, and they stop in front of the palace. They stop in front of the palace and they ask some bread, because everybody is starving. The first day, nobody answered. So the second day, those women, they decided to invade the palace. They killed 2 guards and they caught the royal family, and the royal family is brought in Paris. Okay? This is the last time that they are going to see Versailles. So when they are in Paris, this is the beginning of a parliamentary monarchy. Of course, the royal family doesn't like this. So at one point they are going to try to escape in another country of Europe, maybe to prepare a counter-revolution. So 2 years after they were brought in Paris, in 1791, the royal family, one morning, they disguised, they go on a carrosse and they try to escape in Belgium, in the north of France. They are disguised, they are in a carrosse, but just before the border, you have 2 last checkpoints. At the first checkpoint, there is one guard, he saw the family, he don't recognize the family, but then he let them pass. And the father of the family, that is the king, he gave him some cash. But the problem is, at the time on the cash, there was the face of the king. So he recognized the king afterwards. He go on his horse, he go to the last checkpoint, and here the royal family is arrested. They are arrested, they are going to be brought in Paris, and this trying of escape is considered as a high treason. So everybody in the royal family is going to be put in jail. And 2 years after that, in 1793, the queen and the king, they are going to be sentenced to death by the guillotine. Okay? And from the moment they are beheaded, all the kingdoms of Europe, they are going to declare war to France. Because as I told you, they don't want the republican ideas to spread all over Europe. But they couldn't stop it, as you can see. So what time is it right now? We are supposed to exit at 5. Okay, I'm going to show you some other rooms. So I told you, after the revolution, this is the beginning of a war. And during this war, there is one general is going to win a lot of battles. I already told you about him. Okay? This general is going to become more and more popular because of his victories. And can you guess who I'm talking about? No? One really famous general? One really famous Napoleon.
No, yes.
So yeah, Napoleon, at first he was a general working for the French army during the Revolution of Wars. Okay, so he became popular because of his victories, his military campaign in Egypt. As I told you, he was crowned by the Pope in Notre Dame. Remember, I told you that. This is what is happening on this painting. This is the coronation of Napoleon. Napoleon, you see, is at the center. He already crowned himself and is about to crown his wife, Josephine. You can see the Pope behind him in white is sitting. He's under the level of Napoleon to show that Napoleon is more important than him. Okay? Also, you can see a lot of the family of Napoleon. For example, his mother at the center, but she wasn't there because she was mad at him at the moment. He had a fight with one of his brothers because he wasn't present for his coronation. You have his sisters at the left with the little crowns. You have many characters, but it is not realistic. This is propaganda. Maybe you already know that, but Napoleon at one point is going to make one mistake. He's going to try to invade Russia. The first mistake he made. So when him and his huge army, they are going to invade Russia, at first the Russian armies, they are going to step back, okay, and they are going to burn everything on their way. So the French army, they have nowhere to stay, nothing to eat. Okay? And after that, when the whole army is in Russia, the winter began. So when the winter began, a lot of the soldiers they died. So when he came back, Napoleon, at first he is sent in exile once. He's going to try to make a comeback. This period is named the 100 Days because he's going to try to come back during 100 days. And then he's going to lose against the English in Waterloo. So when he loses against the English, he's sent in exile for good, as you might know. And after that, actually, there is a comeback of the kings. Actually, you know the little brothers of Louis XVI, the one that was beheaded, they were in exile. They decided to escape at the beginning of the French Revolution. So they are going to make a comeback, and at the end of the reign of Napoleon in 1814, they are going to take over France. They are going to take over France, and they are going to reign from 1814 to 1830, so during 16 years. So here you have a room that is dedicated to the wars of the revolutions. So the kings, the little brothers of Louis XVI, they are going to make a comeback. They are going to reign during 16 years, and after that you have the Second French Revolution. Okay? So after that you have one last king of France. The last king of France, you are going to see him on the right now on this statue. The name of this king is Louis Philippe. He will reign from 1830 to 1848. And Louis Philippe actually is the king that transformed this palace into a museum. Okay? And he's also the one that may build the room that you are going to see right now, and that is my favorite room in the whole building. This room that you are going to see, it's named the Battle Gallery. I really like this room because I'm more interested in history than art. So this room gives you a summary of the French history, even if some of the paintings they are a little bit legendary. So you have to understand that when the last king of France he became a king, the kingdom is really divided in different opinions. You had some people that were for the monarchy, some people that were for the republic, and some people that were for Napoleon. Okay? So the kingdom is really divided under the reign of Louis Philippe, and he decided to transform this palace into a museum. He tries actually to reunite all the French people behind their glorious past. This is why all the paintings that you can see here, they represent battles won by France, since the first Christian king that was named Clovis that you can see on this painting. And then you have to look in chronological order. So first this one, then this one, this one, this one. And when you make a whole circle around this one, you finish with Napoleon. So at the end of the reign of Louis Philippe, there is a third French Revolution in 1840. After that, there is an election. We try to elect a president for the French Republic. And the French people, they were not really wise. As a president, they decided to elect the nephew of Napoleon. Of course, at first, the nephew of Napoleon is president during 2 years, and after that, he's going to name himself Emperor of the French people, like his own president. So, Napoleon III will reign from 1848 to 1870, and at the end of his reign, we say no more kings, no more emperor. We decided to have other republics. So a third republic, a fourth republic. Now we are at the fifth republic. Okay. Actually, every time we change the constitution, it's a new republic. Okay. And we are still trying to find a way to the perfect democracy. For example, I think that nowadays in the Fifth Republic, the president he has too much power. I'm more interested in parliamentary power. So I think we should pass to a Sixth Republic. How you? So now you have a good summary of what happened in the late history of France. You see here, you are going to see the letters LP for Louis Philippe, the one that transformed the palace into a museum.
I think you have history degree or something.
Sorry?
I think you have history degree or something.
History studies, you mean?
You mean yes, a degree or
Yeah.
higher studies?
Yeah, but well, you know, of course, when you practice, I have done this tour maybe 100 times or something like that. So you start to understand
Okay.
just general informations. I couldn't tell you every details about the history and everything. Just wait to see if everyone's there. You like the tour? Yeah. So. So it's good.
Is it finished?
Yeah, we are done with the palace. We are going to go to the exhibit.